James, I don't know how to tell you. Mark's voice trembled, something I had never heard him do before. Mark was a corporate lawyer known for his unwavering calm in the courtroom. Hearing him struggle for words sent a chill down my spine. What happened? Are you okay? I'm at the Riverside Hotel for a Thompson Industries charity event. James, Sarah's here. My brain refused to process his words. That's impossible. She's in Chicago until Sunday. She's wearing the silver dress you bought her for your anniversary. And the emerald necklace. Mark paused, his breathing heavy. She's here as someone's companion. James, I'm watching her with Charles Davidson right now. Charles Davidson. This name hit me like a physical blow. Everyone in Boston's business circles knew him, a 65-year-old real estate mogul with a reputation for being a young, expensive companion. I did my best to avoid dealing with him professionally, finding his methods and personal life repugnant. You're wrong, I said, but even before the words left my mouth, I felt the first cracks in my reality appear. It must be someone who looks like her. I'm sending you a picture. I'm so sorry, James. The image loaded, and my world exploded. There was Sarah, glowing in the silver dress I'd bought her in Milan. The emerald necklace I'd given her for Christmas sparkling in the light. She hugged Davidson tightly, her hand on his chest, with a smile I thought was meant only for me. Judging by the timestamp, the picture was taken 10 minutes ago. I sat staring at my phone, feeling like I was watching someone's life fall apart. The proposals on my desk, the wedding planning folder in my briefcase, the future I had carefully built. All of it seemed like a cruel joke now. That's not all, Mark said quietly. After I saw her, I did some digging. She's been here before, James. Repeatedly with different men. The hotel staff knows her. The room began to spin. I grabbed onto the table, trying to hold onto something solid as my world around me became liquid. How long? From what I can piece together, at least a year. Probably longer. She has a reputation in certain circles. High-end events, private parties. James, I think this is her real job. My stomach fluttered. A year. We'd been engaged for 8 months. All those night screenings, weekend conferences, networking events, how many of them were real? I opened my laptop with trembling hands, logging into our joint account. Sarah had insisted on keeping it for wedding expenses. The transactions began to tell a story I hadn't wanted to read before. James? Mark's voice seemed to come from far away. What are you going to do? I looked at the photo of our engagement again, seeing her with new eyes. The woman I loved, the future we had planned, it was all a carefully constructed illusion. The timing of our meeting at that charity event was not accidental. I was targeted, prepared, set up for something bigger. I need you to do something for me, I said, my voice surprisingly even. Keep watching. Document everything. And Mark, thank you for telling me. I spent the next few hours in a daze, mechanically replaying the course of my day in my head. I called our wedding planner, citing a family emergency, and asked her to hold off on signing new contracts. I contacted my bank and froze our joint accounts. Then I called my friend, Detective Michael Chin. Mike and I had known each other since our college days, and he always said he owed me a favor after I helped him through some tough times. Now, sitting in his office at the end of the day, he looked at the evidence I had gathered with growing concern. She's good, Mike admitted. One of their best operators. The women in this organization are trained to build long-term relationships, gain trust, and gain access to accounts and confidential information. Marriage is the ultimate goal. The terms of the marriage contract usually give them significant rights to assets after a year or two. I thought about the prenup Sarah and I had discussed, how she had insisted on some unusual clauses that her lawyer had insisted were standard for modern marriages. A lawyer who, I now realize, was probably part of the same organization. What do you want from me? I asked. Mike leaned forward. Your situation could be the breakthrough we need, but it means we'll have to stall for time. Gather more evidence. Can you do that? Could I? Could I look into the eyes of the woman I planned to spend the rest of my life with, knowing that she had been playing me from the start? Pretend that everything was normal while working to expose not only her betrayal, but an entire criminal group? The answer came easier than I expected. Yes. Mike nodded, sliding a small device across the table. It's a secure phone. Use it to document everything. And James, be careful. These people are professionals. If they suspect, I left the police station with a new mission and an empty feeling in my chest. As I drove home, the sun was setting over Boston Harbor, casting long shadows over the city. Sarah would be back on Sunday, probably with shopping bags and stories about her conference. I had 48 hours to prepare for the performance of my life. I found myself looking at the photos from our engagement again. There was one where she was laughing, her head thrown back, the sun shining on her hair. I thought it was a moment of pure joy, captured forever. Now I wondered if she was laughing at me, at how perfectly her plan had worked. The next day I met with my lawyer, Rebecca Torres. I had known her for years, trusted her completely, and now I needed her expertise more than ever. It's a mess, she said frankly as she looked over the documents I had brought. But it's a manageable mess. The fact that you caught it before the wedding is even good. We can protect your assets, your company's interests. But James? She paused, looking at me over the top of her glasses. Are you sure you want to go through with Mike's plan? It would be easier to just end it now, walk away. I thought about all the other men in those surveillance photos. How many lives had this organization ruined? How many more lives would they have ruined if someone hadn't stopped them? I'm sure, I said. But I need your help. But I need your help to get insurance. If something happens to me. Rebecca nodded, understanding immediately. We spent the next few hours preparing the paperwork, creating secure accounts and a paper trail that would protect me and expose me if necessary. Sunday evening came all too quickly. I heard Sarah's key in the door, heard her humming as she walked in. The sound made my stomach twist. James? I'm home. Her voice was bright, happy, perfect, like everything else in her carefully constructed facade. The conference was so boring. You wouldn't believe the presentations I had to sit through. I walked out of the kitchen, forcing a smile. Welcome home, honey. How was Chicago? She came over to kiss me, and it took everything I had not to flinch. Her perfume, the one I'd bought her in Paris, wrapped around me like a shroud. It's exhausting, but I closed 2 potential deals, so it was worth it. She patted her briefcase like a professional realtor. That's great, I said, wondering if there were any real estate documents in there at all. Listen, I was thinking, maybe we should have a dinner party next weekend? We could invite your family and close friends. Celebrate your upcoming wedding. Sarah's eyes lit up exactly as I expected. She was always eager to show off our relationship, our home, our life. Great. I'll start planning tomorrow. I love you, she said as we were getting ready for bed. And I wondered how many other men had heard her say those same words with the same impeccable sincerity. I love you too, I replied, feeling the lie tasted like ash in my mouth. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. I spent the morning helping Sarah prepare for the dinner party, watching her float around our kitchen like everything was normal. She had no idea that tonight would change everything. Can you check if we have enough wine glasses? Sarah called from the dining room. Mom and Dad always drink red, and Amanda prefers white. I opened the cabinet, counting glasses while my stomach churned. Sarah's parents, Tom and Linda, had always treated me like a son. What I was about to do would break their hearts. The doorbell rang at 6 p.m. sharp. Tom and Linda arrived first, bringing Linda's famous apple pie. Sarah's sister Amanda and her husband Steve came next, followed by my friend Mark and his wife Jenny. I noticed how Sarah tensed slightly when Mark walked in, though she covered it well. The house smells amazing, Linda said, hugging Sarah. You've really become quite the cook. If she only knew how many other skills her daughter had developed. We sat down to dinner, everyone praising Sarah's roast beef and garlic mashed potatoes. The conversation flowed easily, mostly about the upcoming wedding. Sarah had everyone's attention as she described her plans for the ceremony. The flowers will be white peonies, she was saying, and the bridesmaids will wear Actually, I interrupted, my heart pounding. I wanted to talk about something else first. Sarah's head turned toward me sharply. For just a moment, I saw fear flash across her face. Sarah, I said quietly, why don't you tell everyone where you really were last Friday? The room went silent. Sarah's smile didn't waver, but her knuckles went white around her wine glass. I was at the real estate conference in Chicago, she said smoothly. I showed you the materials. Remember? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo Mark had sent me. No, you were at the Riverside Hotel with Charles Davidson. Sarah's face went pale as I passed my phone to her father. The photo showed her clearly. The silver dress I'd bought her, the emerald necklace catching the light as she leaned close to Davidson. Who's Charles Davidson? Linda asked, confused. He's a real estate developer, Sarah said quickly. It was a business meeting. A business meeting? I laughed without humor. In that dress? With a man known for paying young women to accompany him to events. Tom's face had turned red as he stared at the photo. Sarah, what is this? It's not what it looks like, Sarah started, but her voice was shaking. Then what is it? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my fiancé is living a double life. The room erupted in chaos. Linda started crying. Amanda was asking rapid-fire questions, and Tom just sat there, looking like his world was crumbling. You're spying on me now? Sarah's voice turned cold. Having your friends follow me around? Mark happened to be at that event, I said. He saw you with Davidson. He saw how friendly you were being. Sarah stood up suddenly, her chair scraping across the floor. This is ridiculous. I don't have to defend my business meetings to anyone. Sarah. Tom's voice was barely controlled. Sit down and explain yourself. She looked around the table, saw nothing but shocked and hurt faces. Something changed in her expression then. The mask slipped, just a little. I have nothing to explain, she said, grabbing her purse. If my fiancé doesn't trust me, if my own family would believe the worst about me based on one photo, then I don't need any of you. She walked out, head held high. The door slammed behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda was crying quietly into her napkin. Tom just stared at his plate, shoulders slumped. I'm so sorry, I said softly. You needed to know. No, we're sorry, Tom said, his voice rough. Whatever's going on with Sarah, this isn't how we raised her. That photo doesn't prove anything. Sarah's voice was shrill as she stared at the image of her with Davidson. It was a business meeting. A business meeting? I couldn't help but laugh. In a $3,000 dress at midnight? You're spying on me now? Sarah shot back, her eyes flashing. Taking secret photos? I didn't have to, I said. Mark was there, remember? He saw everything. Oh, trust Mark, your faithful little spy. Sarah turned to her parents. Mom, Dad, you can't seriously believe this. James is having some kind of breakdown. Don't. Tom's voice was like steel. Don't you dare try to twist this around. I want to know exactly what you were doing with Charles Davidson. Fine. Sarah stood up, her chair scraping back. You want to know? Yes, I meet with powerful men. Yes, I do whatever it takes to get ahead. That's how the real world works. By cheating on your fiancé? Amanda's voice cracked. Oh, like you're so perfect? Sarah sneered at her sister. Remember Tommy Reynolds in high school? Does Steve know about that? Don't deflect. I cut in. This isn't about Amanda. This is about what you've been doing. And Davidson isn't the only one, is he? Sarah's face changed just slightly. A flicker of fear before her mask slipped back into place. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone again. Really? Then let's talk about Robert Kensington. The color drained from Sarah's face. Who's Robert Kensington? Linda asked, looking between us. Show them, Sarah, I said. Show them your other phone. The one in your purse right now. Her hand instinctively went to her bag. Sarah? Tom's voice was dangerous now. What other phone? With shaking hands, Sarah pulled out a sleek black iPhone, different from the rose gold one she usually carried. "Give it to your father," I said quietly.
No.
She clutched it to her chest. "Give it to me, Sarah." Tom held out his hand. The tension in the room was unbearable as father and daughter stared each other down. Finally, Sarah handed over the phone. "The passcode is 1212, I said. Sarah's head snapped toward me in shock. "Yeah, I know about that too. Same code you use for everything, isn't it?" Tom typed it in. His face darkened as he scrolled through messages. "Last night was amazing," he read aloud. "Same rate as usual? The suite at the Four Seasons is booked for Thursday." He looked up at his daughter. "There are dozens of these, from different men." "It's not what you think," Sarah started. "Then what is it?" Linda's voice was sharp, surprising everyone. "Because it looks like my daughter is sleeping with men for money." "You want to talk about money, Mom?" Sarah's voice turned ugly. "Let's talk about how Dad really paid for my college." "Tell them, Dad. Tell them about the money you took." "Enough." I slammed my hand on the table. "Stop trying to deflect. This isn't about your parents. This is about you and what you've been doing, and this." I pulled out one final piece of paper and set it on the table. "What is that?" Amanda asked. "It's a receipt," I said. My eyes locked on Sarah. "For a private investigator. One Sarah hired 3 months ago to investigate me, to find anything she could use against me after the wedding." The room erupted in chaos. "You were investigating him?" Linda cried. "What were you planning?" Tom demanded. "Sarah, how could you?" Amanda was nearly screaming. Sarah looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. Then suddenly she laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound that made everyone fall silent. "You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I see other men. Yes, I get paid for it. And yes, I was gathering information on James. Because that's what smart women do. They protect themselves. They make sure they have leverage." "Leverage," I repeated. "For what?" "For when you inevitably got bored with me, or cheated, or decided to trade me in for a younger model. Men like you always do. Men like me." I stood up slowly. "Sarah, I loved you. I would have given you everything. But this." I gestured at the phone, the receipt, the evidence of her double life. "This wasn't protection. This was a con from the start."
A con.
She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, James, baby, you have no idea what a real con looks like. But you're about to find out." The threat hung in the air as we all sat there, the remains of our dinner growing cold, the perfect family evening shattered by ugly truths. "What's that supposed to mean?" Tom demanded. Sarah just smiled and reached for her wine glass, taking a long sip. "It means Big Brother's been watching me? Well, guess what? I've been watching too. And I've got evidence of my own. About everyone at this table." She turned to her father. "Want to tell Mom about Jennifer from your office?" Tom went pale. "Or you, Amanda? Should we discuss those yoga classes you've been taking?" Amanda grabbed Steve's hand. "That's enough." Linda's voice cut through the room like a whip. "Sarah, what happened to you? Where did I go wrong?" "Wrong?" Sarah laughed again. "Nothing's wrong with me, Mom. I'm just better at playing the game than all of you. More honest about it, at least." "Honest?" I couldn't help but laugh. "You want to talk about honesty? Because I haven't even shown them the worst part yet." Sarah's smile faltered just slightly. "What are you talking about?" I met her eyes across the table. "I know about Miami, Sarah." The wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. Red wine spread across the white carpet like blood. The shattered wine glass at Sarah's feet seemed to freeze time for just a moment. Her face had gone completely white at the mention of Miami. "What's in Miami?" Amanda asked, looking between us. "Sarah just had that real estate conference there last month." "Did she?" I kept my eyes on Sarah. "Tell them about the conference, honey. Tell them about the Whitman wedding." "The what?" Linda's head snapped up. "James, please," Sarah whispered. But I was done keeping her secrets. "Your daughter didn't go to a real estate conference," I said to Tom and Linda. "She went to her own wedding." To Richard Whitman, a 68-year-old real estate developer she'd been seeing behind my back for months. That's insane. Amanda jumped up, defending her sister. Sarah would never. She loves James. Tell them, Sarah. But Sarah just stood there, wine soaking into her designer heels. Show them, I said quietly. Show them your right hand. The tan line from your other wedding ring is still visible. Sarah instinctively covered her right hand, and Amanda's fierce defense faltered. Oh my God, Amanda whispered. Sarah, it's not what you think. Sarah finally spoke, her voice shaking. The marriage wasn't real. It was just business. Business. Tom's voice could have cut steel. You married another man while engaged to James and you call it business? You don't understand how this industry works. Sarah suddenly exploded. Men like Whitman, they expect certain things. They don't just hand out million-dollar listings to anyone. The room went dead silent. Million-dollar listings? Linda's voice was barely a whisper. That's what you sold yourself for? I didn't sell anything. Sarah's eyes were wild now. I made strategic alliances. I built relationships. And yes, sometimes those relationships involved marriage. Sometimes. I pulled out my phone. Should we talk about the other marriages, Sarah? About Chicago? About Seattle? The blood drained from her face. You're bluffing. You can't know about. I know everything. I held up a small voice recorder. Because last night, you told Davidson everything. You recorded me? Sarah's voice went up an octave. No, Davidson recorded you. Turns out he likes to keep evidence of his business meetings. His wife found the recordings. All of them. She came to me this morning. Amanda, who'd been Sarah's fierce defender just moments ago, sank back into her chair. Sarah, what did you do? What I had to. Sarah shot back. You think Dad's perfect little accounting job paid for your college? For Mom's medical bills? Someone had to step up. Don't you dare. Tom stood up, his face red. Don't you dare try to blame this family for what you've done. Why not? It's the truth. While you all played by the rules, getting nowhere, I did what needed to be done. And I was good at it. Good at what? Linda's voice cracked. At lying? Cheating? At breaking James's heart. James? Sarah laughed bitterly. James was just another Mark. Rich, trusting, desperate to start a family. Do you know how easy it was to make him fall in love? To get him to propose? The words hit me like physical blows, but I kept my voice steady. Play the recording for them, Sarah. Or should I? She stared at me, chest heaving. Then something in her seemed to break. Fine. Play it. Show them who I really am. Show them what their perfect daughter had to become to survive in this world. I pressed play, and Davidson's expensive whiskey-smooth voice filled the dining room. So, tell me about your fiancé. Sarah's recorded voice replied, James? He's nothing. Just another stepping stone. Rich enough to be worth the time, stupid enough to trust me. The prenup is a joke. After a year of marriage, I get half of everything. Davidson. And he has no idea about the others? Sarah. Please. He thinks I'm his soulmate. They all do at first. I stopped the recording. Linda was sobbing. Tom looked like he'd aged 10 years. Amanda just stared at her sister like she was seeing a stranger. But Sarah wasn't done. Her face had transformed into something hard and cold. You want to judge me? Fine. But I know things about everyone in this room. Dad's gambling, Mom's little shopping trips with her personal trainer, Amanda's secret credit cards. Sarah, I cut her off. Think very carefully about your next move. Because I haven't shown them the video yet. She froze mid-sentence. What video? The one from your meeting with Whitman's wife, where you tried to blackmail her, where you laid out your whole operation, every detail, every man, every scheme. Would you like to tell them about that? Or should I show them? Sarah sank back into her chair, the fight finally draining out of her. But as I reached for my phone to play the video, nobody in that room could have predicted what would happen next. Everyone at the dinner table stared at my phone, waiting for me to play the video of Sarah's meeting with Whitman's wife. But before I could press play, Sarah's sister Amanda stood up. "Stop!" Amanda's voice shook. "I can't watch any more of this. Sarah's made mistakes, but she's still my sister. There has to be more to the story." "Amanda's right," Linda chimed in, wiping her tears. "Sarah, sweetheart, just tell us the truth. Whatever it is, we're your family. We can help you." Sarah looked around the table, seeing the last traces of love and trust in her family's eyes. For a moment, she seemed to soften. "Mom!" She started, then stopped. Her hand went unconsciously to her stomach. I felt the blood drain from my face. That gesture, I'd seen it before, last week, when she thought I wasn't looking. "Sarah," I said quietly, "tell them about the doctor's appointment." She went completely still. "What?" "Last Thursday. The appointment you said was a routine checkup." I pulled out a folded paper from my pocket. "I found this in your purse this morning. The ultrasound." The room erupted. "Ultrasound?" Linda gasped. "Sarah, are you pregnant?" "Oh my God!" Amanda squealed, momentarily forgetting everything else. "I'm going to be an aunt." But Tom was looking at Sarah's face, at the fear in her eyes. "When?" he asked. "How far along?" I answered for her. 12 weeks. I turned to Sarah. "Which means it happened in Miami. With Whitman." The joy drained from Amanda's face. Linda collapsed back into her chair. "No," Sarah whispered. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." I cut in. "You're carrying another man's child. A man you secretly married while engaged to me. Were you going to pretend it was mine? Wait until after our wedding." "James, please." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I was going to tell you." "When?" I demanded. "After the wedding? After you trapped me into raising another man's child." "It's not like that." Sarah was crying now, real tears for once. "I didn't plan this." "Like you didn't plan the marriage? The affairs? The blackmail? The baby changes everything," Amanda said firmly, still trying to defend her sister. "We need to calm down and think about what's best for." "Best for who?" I laughed bitterly. "For Sarah? For the baby? Or for Whitman? Who doesn't even know he's going to be a father?" Sarah's head snapped up. "How did you know you hadn't told him?" "Because his wife mentioned they've been trying to have a baby for years. Imagine how interested she'll be to learn about this." "You wouldn't," Sarah whispered. "Actually, I would. In fact." I pulled out my phone again, but this time I pulled up my recent calls. "I already did. 20 minutes ago." The doorbell rang. Sarah jumped up. "You had no right." "No right?" Tom's voice boomed. "You're carrying a married man's child while engaged to another man, and you're talking about rights? Daddy, please." Sarah turned to him, desperate. "I know I messed up, but this baby, it's your grandchild." "My grandchild?" Tom stood slowly. "A child conceived in lies and manipulation? Is that the legacy you want to give my grandchild?" The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. "That'll be Davidson," I said quietly. "And Whitman's wife. I invited them both over. Thought they might be interested in joining our little family dinner." Sarah looked around wildly, seeing no escape. Her perfect plan, her careful manipulations. It was all falling apart. "Sarah." Linda spoke up, her voice surprisingly steady. "Before we open that door, before anything else happens, tell us the truth. All of it. No more lies." Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, one hand on her stomach. The doorbell rang a third time. The doorbell kept ringing, but nobody moved to answer it. "Sarah," Linda pleaded, "just tell us the truth. No more lies." Sarah stood trembling, one hand still on her stomach. "The truth? Fine. You want the truth?" "Yes. I'm pregnant with Richard's baby. Yes, I was going to pass it off as James's. Because I had everything planned perfectly until you all ruined it." "Perfectly planned?" I couldn't help but laugh. "Like how you perfectly planned our whole relationship? I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small blue velvet box. Not a ring box, bigger. Sarah's eyes locked onto it. What is that? Your wedding present. Well, what was going to be your wedding present? I opened the box slowly. Inside was a key attached to a silver keychain with coordinates engraved on it. Amanda leaned forward. What are the coordinates for? A beach house, I said quietly. In Maui. The one Sarah always talked about wanting to retire to someday. I bought it last month. It was going to be my surprise at the wedding. The room went completely silent for the first time that night. You bought me a house? Sarah's voice cracked. I bought us a future, or what I thought was our future. I closed the box with a snap. Instead, you were planning to take half my assets in a divorce while carrying another man's child. James, Sarah reached for the box, but I pulled it away. James, please, I can explain. Explain what? I cut her off. How you were going to wait until after the wedding to tell me about the baby. How you were going to let me raise another man's child while you planned your exit. It's not like that. Sarah was crying now, real tears for once. I needed security, a future, and I would have given you everything, I said softly. That's what you never understood, Sarah. You didn't have to lie, to manipulate, to scheme. I loved you. I would have given you the world. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. That'll be Richard's wife, I said, standing up. I'm sure she'll be very interested in meeting the mother of her husband's child. You can't do this to me, Sarah pleaded. I'm pregnant. Think about the baby. The baby. Tom's voice boomed. The one you were going to use to trap James? To scam another innocent man. Daddy, please. Don't call me that. Tom cut her off. No daughter of mine would do this. Would hurt people this way. The doorbell rang a third time. I'm going to answer that, I said calmly. And then everyone's going to hear the whole truth. About Miami. About the baby. About everything. Wait. Sarah grabbed my arm. What do you want? Money? I'll give back everything. Just don't do this. I gently removed her hand. What I wanted was to spend my life with someone who loved me. To give you that beach house, to build a future together. But that person never existed, did she? Sarah's silence was answer enough. I walked to the front door, ignoring Sarah's pleas behind me. As I reached for the handle, I thought about the life we could have had. The dreams we'd shared. The future I'd planned. But that future was built on lies. And now, as I opened the door to face whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. Sarah would finally have to face the truth about who she really was.